Good morning, everyone. A warm welcome on behalf of the delegation of the European Union to New Zealand. I'm Diane Lacoste. I lead the trade team at the delegation. Thank you a lot for joining us today for this webinar on the ongoing reform of the building sector in New Zealand and the opportunities this creates for building materials from the European Union. The delegation is very pleased to organise this session together with colleagues at the New Zealand's Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, MBIE. So let me briefly introduce our speakers today. Ambassador Lawrence Meredith, Ambassador of the European Union to New Zealand, will open this session with remarks. Then joining us today are Sophie Cunningham, Manager, Building Regulatory Services, and Liz Ashwin. Sorry for the pronunciation. Liz, you'll correct that if need be. So Liz, you're the technical lead, Building Regulatory Delivery. So Liz and Sophie will guide us through the reform process and what it means in practice, and of course, opportunities in particular for EU building materials. After the presentation, we will open the floor for questions and answers, so that will be a good opportunity for discussions. So we really encourage you to make the most of this Q&A session. This is obviously a privileged opportunity to ask all the questions you may have about the reform and these upcoming opportunities. To submit a question, please use the Q&A function. You can do that in writing. This is the way we will proceed. You can also like questions submitted by others, and that will allow to prioritize them. A quick practical note as well, the session is recorded and the slides will be circulated to participants and those who would be interested in getting these slides. With that, it's now my pleasure to give the floor to the ambassador. Lawrence, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be with you. Very excited to have this opportunity to discuss this important issue of the innovations on building materials. But let me start, as we've just celebrated Europe Day last week, and we've also just marked 2 years of the European Union's free trade agreement with New Zealand. And that's an absolute game changer. Minister Macleay has already indicated that exports from New Zealand are rocketing with 3 billion extra in exports to the European Union. But also we see massive opportunities from the European Union side. And one of those areas where I know that a number of European Union member states are very keen to develop further the market is in building materials, because the European Union has made it crystal clear that net zero by 2050 is a binding goal for us. And we know that refitting our building stock and ensuring green build going forwards is key for European citizens. And we believe that this is also a great opportunity for New Zealand citizens. It's one of the first issues that I came across in my mandate. I've been in this country for 2.5 years, as a number of countries, I would include Germany, Poland, Hungary, approached by saying, great, we've got a new free trade agreement. Does that mean we can bring in more innovative building materials? And actually, I was also struck by the fact that quite a lot of Kiwis have approached me saying, we're really impressed by a number of the changes we see in the European Union in terms of a greener build. And I just had a fantastic conversation with Andrew Eagles from the Green Building Council. And you can see from the length and breadth of Europe that there are innovative techniques that are climate friendly, but also guarantee great health outcomes in building opportunities, and we're really keen to take those forward. So I've had a number of conversations with Minister Penk, and I'm really grateful for the government's support to address some of the regulation issues that we initially faced. I think that today's discussion is a great opportunity to go deeper into the subject of what the priorities are for you. And we can see that Europe is really serious about its intention in investing in this area in New Zealand. A good example is the purchase that's going through by Vinci of Fletchers, which is one of the major players in the New Zealand building landscape, and Vinci bringing its great experience. Vinci's already present in the New Zealand market on a number of infrastructure projects, and is, for example, one of the bidders on the Northland Expressway. So Vinci has great experience, and we were delighted to have top executives from Vinci at the recent European Union New Zealand Business Summit, where there were great exchanges, and building materials and the infrastructure sector was one of the key conversations that took place at that summit in Auckland, where the Prime Minister was present and a number of ministers, and our Commissioner for Trade made the journey from Europe to New Zealand to join that conversation. So I'm excited to go deeper, to look forward to hearing from the presenters at the changes that they're bringing into the regulatory framework. But my message to you is Europe's very much open for business. We want an ever stronger partnership with New Zealand, and we see the building sector and construction and infrastructure as key areas where the European Union's relationship with New Zealand can go to a new level. And in doing so, we'll bring better outcomes also for Kiwi citizens in terms of warmer, healthier homes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lawrence, for this context. The construction sector is obviously a major part of the New Zealand's economy, accounting for around 6 to 8% of GDP, and you clearly outline how significant the ongoing reforms could be in the broader context of deepening trade opportunities. So I'll now hand over to Sophie and Liz to walk us through the key features of the reform, as well as the ongoing process to identify products and certification schemes that may later be assessed for recognition in New Zealand. Sophie and Liz, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou. Can I just check, can everybody hear me? Give me a thumbs up on screen if the audio is working. Perfect, thank you very much. So kia ora koutou and welcome. Thank you very much to the EU delegation for hosting today's session, and thank you all for your interest in hearing from us. Today we're here to talk to you about MBIE's current work programme on enabling the use of overseas building products here in New Zealand, some recent changes that have been made to our Building Act, and about the opportunity that these changes present for manufacturers and suppliers of overseas building products. We're going to keep this session high level and focused on the pathway and what you can expect if you choose to use it. I'll just reinforce a wee bit of housekeeping and do the intros again. So we've got two speakers here from MBIE, introducing my colleague, Sophie Cunningham, who's our Manager Building Regulatory Services, and I'm Liz Ashwin, Technical Lead Building Regulatory Delivery. The session, as Deanne noted, will be recorded, and we'll share the recording with Deanne and the team so that they can make this available to you following the session. We welcome your questions. If you could kindly use the Q&A function throughout, we'll leave a good amount of time at the end to come back and answer these if we haven't covered it in our presentation. So we'll just move through and give you a bit of an overview as to what we're talking to. We're covering the 3 new overseas products pathways today, with a particular focus on the approved products that are certified overseas. We'll step through a bit of the history as to how we got to this stage, the progress MBIE's made to date operationalising it, and next steps, what you can expect to see from here on in. We'll give you a bit of an explanation about how you can access the pathway, covering the initial expression of interest, system and the application process that follows that, and how that helps you to get an overseas product recognised. We'll also cover some of the processes that we've developed to deliver on this work. There's quite a bit of the operationalisation that's going on in the background here. We will be prioritising, evaluating, and then finally recognising overseas building products. So we'll give you a bit of an overview of that work. The processes have been put in place to ensure that this pathway is implemented consistently, that it works as intended, and that it meets those broader government objectives. So on screen, you can see a wee visual that just shows you about the three pathways that we've talked about. In 2025, there were changes made to our Building Act that introduced these. There's the building product specifications, the endorsed standards, and the approved products that are certified overseas. They're three separate pathways that are designed to work together in tandem, and combined, they intend to make it easier to use overseas building products by providing assurance that building consent authorities will accept them as complying with the building code. We'll touch briefly on the building product specifications and the endorsed standards pathways, and then we'll focus primarily on the approved products certified overseas. So the building product specifications, also known as the BPS, is one single document that pulls together product requirements that had previously been referenced across multiple different compliance documents known as acceptable solutions and verification methods. It's quite a mouthful. Those are the deemed to comply documents that say how building work can be designed and constructed to comply with our building code. So they're quite key documents in the consenting process. The building product specifications has been broadened, so it now includes additional product standards, including some overseas ones, that when they are assessed as providing equivalent or better performance to some New Zealand-based standards. So that expands the compliance options available. One of the main benefits of the building product specifications is that it's a streamlined update process for that document. So it allows us to update it more frequently than we could previously do with those acceptable solutions and verification methods. That allows us to sort of keep abreast of new products that are specified overseas and to keep that current in a much more agile way. So the other pathway that we'll touch briefly on now are the endorsed standards. So these are groups of standards that have been issued by trusted overseas standards organisations or certification schemes. Those standards are actually recognised by the Minister for Building and Construction. That's not an MBIE process. But what they also do is they help to make it easier for New Zealand-based designers to specify overseas building products in building designs. There are a number of those standards that have been recognised in October last year, and they do include both the European Committee for Standardisation, or CEN standards, and the European Committee for Electrotechnical Standardisation, or the CEN standards. I hope I got those initialisms correct. So both the building product specifications and the endorsed standards can be used by building designers to provide evidence of compliance with the building code. And we will now move on and talk about the third pathway, which is the approved products certified overseas. That's going to be the focus of our presentation today. So at a high level, this pathway allows MB to evaluate building products that have been certified under an overseas product certification scheme. Once we've evaluated them, MB is able to issue a recognition notice that confirms that the certified product that's been recognised overseas complies with certain aspects of our New Zealand building code. The recognition notices provide consistent information. They're formatted in the same way across all recognition notices. They provide details of what New Zealand building code clauses and standards the products have been assessed against, and confirm if there are any limitations or conditions on the product's use. They also list the specific product certificates that are recognised. We publish a register on our building.govt website, so they're made publicly available for designers and builders to use here in New Zealand. The recognition notices can be amended or revoked by MB, and I think one of the most important things to note, if you're looking on screen, there's a dashed red line there that shows a deemed to comply pathway. The recognition notices are deemed to comply in a similar way to our code mark scheme here. So it basically elevates overseas product certification schemes and gives them a comparable status as a code mark certification domestically, which means they must be accepted by a building consent authority, provided the product recognised is being used within the limitations and conditions noted on the notice. So this pathway supports overseas manufacturers and suppliers to import into Aotearoa, New Zealand, with a clearer acceptance pathway into our consenting process. Right, recognition timeline 2025. This slide shows some of the key implementation milestones that we hit in 2025, including the enabling changes to the building legislation and the initial work that we did to recognise some overseas products, the watermark scheme. You can see from looking at this that we had quite a busy 12 months. The legislation that enables the overseas building products pathway was introduced in April last year, and that was closely followed by the commencement of the relevant regulations. Those regulations are the building products certification regulations, and they specify the relevant criteria for using this particular pathway. As many of you will be aware, the implementation of the overseas building products recognition notices focused initially on watermark, plumbing and drainage products. We started with those because those products align closely with our existing New Zealand compliance pathways, and that made them quite straightforward to recognise the first cab off the rank, if you like. As part of recognising those watermark products, MBIE publicly consulted on the proposed recognition notices, and following that consultation, we issued a total of 76 recognition notices in 2025. The final notices came into effect on the 9th of February this year. So what's next? This is a timeline that shows you what we've got in the pipeline and you know where this is going to get interesting for your jurisdictions. In February this year, MB commenced work on some reactive or industry sector-led recognitions of further products. So we're looking to widen the scope of the recognition scheme broader than just the watermark products. As part of that, our self-assessment and expression of interest tool went live in late February. We'll explain what that's for and how to use it shortly, and we'll also provide a link to this tool in the slide pack so it can be shared with organisations in your jurisdictions that may be interested in accessing the pathway. Once we've received an expression of interest through this tool, and it's a fairly straightforward online application. Basically, in high level terms, what happens is we take the EOIs we've received, we prioritise them using specified criteria, and we identify high priority products or product categories that we wish to progress through the recognition process first. And following that process, we then invite formal applications for recognition from those specific parties. We're aiming to do the first round of evaluations of EOIs for the applications we've had so far since February by the end of Q2 2026, and we'll be inviting applications in August this year. We're aiming to issue the next tranche of recognition notices, the reactive ones, in early 2027. So I'll now pass over to Sophie to dig into the details of the different steps there.
Kia ora koutou, and thanks, Liz. Just a reminder as well, if you want to use that Q&A function at the top of the screen, please do so. We'll have a fair amount of time at the end to cover that. So the self-assessment checklist and expression of interest form, really rolls off the tongue, is a form for manufacturers and suppliers and importers to check their readiness and ability to meet requirements. So it is accessible on our building performance website, and as Liz alluded to before, we'll make sure that you guys get a link to that form. If the self-assessment comes back as all green, confirming that a supplier meets the basic requirements, then they'll be asked if they'd like to proceed further into the tool to express their interest in applying for the pathway. The EOI helps indicate that they are ready and interested to apply, and signals to MB the scheme and category of products they wish to apply for recognition for, and its associated certification scheme. So as a reminder, the EOI is not a formal application, and it doesn't confirm that MB will accept or process an application or issue a recognition notice. There's no charge as well to submit an expression of interest. So in preparation for submitting an EOI, there are a number of things that a product supplier should begin to consider. Initial requirements for this pathway cover a few things. For example, do they have a product that has been certified by an overseas product certification scheme? Think our Codemark scheme in New Zealand or Codemark Australia and Watermark across the Tasman. These are all product certification schemes. There are product certification schemes operating all over the world, and they'll need to have a valid product certification from this type of scheme to be able to apply. The certification must also be issued by an accredited certification body. There is also a requirement that the certificate be available to be publicly accessed via a website. So that's quite a simple requirement. Those that want to use a recognition notice need to be able to access the product certificates. If they can't be accessed, they won't be recognised. If you take an example of some of our Watermark certified products, the public is unable to access some of the PDF versions of the certificates for Watermark, and therefore those weren't included on the recognition notices that we issued. Following a similar vein is the product certificate in English. It's pretty self-explanatory. Those who want to use that certificate in New Zealand need to be able to understand the content that's on it. A couple of other things that people may want to consider that's relevant to this process is the quality of any documentation that supports anything behind that product certification. Does the product have a building product information requirements statement? It's a requirement that particular products have this statement in New Zealand. Is the product available soon or available now for purchase in New Zealand? And does someone have more than one product they'd like to have recognised? So all of those are useful questions to begin asking if there's any interest in exploring this pathway. So what do we do with the EOIs once we have them? Liz has kind of alluded to a bit of the process, but I will detail it a little bit more for you. So MB will determine what categories and individual products we want to progress initially. So EOIs will be assessed and prioritised in groups or batches. And to help manage the recognition process itself, applications may be focused on priority product categories, which will be identified using a multi-criteria assessment that considers things such as market impact, supply resilience, compliance risk, and feasibility, before being evaluated against the actual requirements of the Act and the supporting regulations for this pathway. Those EOIs relating to those categories or products will be invited to submit a formal application. MB will then begin to vet the applications for correctness, and once accepted, will then proceed to processing and evaluating the application. This includes an evaluation of the scheme itself first, and then an evaluation of the product certificate. If the evaluation has determined that a recognition notice can be issued for the product certification, we'll then begin the formal process for recognition. This is why EOIs are important. Not only does it determine the level of readiness to apply, but it also helps inform a bigger picture for MB to select the right category or categories to open to applications to first. If the product category is not selected first, then EOIs will be considered again in the next round of applications, and so on and so forth. We also want to provide a bit of an overview of what we mean when we talk about an overseas product certification scheme, as this is a fundamental requirement for this pathway. Product certification scheme is a formal process used to verify that a product consistently meets specific standards or regulatory requirements. It provides assurance to regulators, industry professionals, and consumers that the product is safe, reliable, and fit for purpose. So this slide, although quite a lot of information in it, does break down the key roles: the accreditation body, the certification scheme, and the certification body that issues the product certificates. So accreditation is typically to an appropriate standard, such as ISO IEC 17065 for product certification, and accreditation bodies operate within internationally recognised arrangements like the International Accreditation Forum. An accreditation body accredits the product certification bodies to issue the certificates of products, confirming that they are competent and independent to operate a certification scheme and issue those certificates. Once accredited, the certification body evaluates and certifies products using compliance evidence such as test reports or technical documentation, and undertakes ongoing monitoring to ensure continued compliance. Certification schemes rely on independent third-party assessments and have robust policies, procedures, and systems that underpin how products are assessed, certified, and monitored over time. So most importantly, certification isn't a one-off event. Certified products are monitored on an ongoing basis to ensure compliance is regularly and still met. So to issue a recognition notice, whether via an application or proactively, MBIE must undertake a two-step process. Firstly, we do an evaluation of the scheme and then the certificate, as I alluded to before. So for MBIE's evaluation of the scheme, we check several criteria: that the certification scheme is accredited to an appropriate standard by a recognised body, that it has robust processes, and that these processes include how it evaluates, certifies, and monitors products, and that its staff and certifiers act independently, professionally, and with integrity. Once we're confident that the scheme meets the criteria set out in regulations, our next step is to undertake an evaluation of the certificate itself. So to do this, we look at the criteria that I've outlined before when we're looking at things to consider for the EOI. We also look at whether it contains enough technical detail to enable us to provide a translation of the certified product's intended use, its compliance with any relevant code clauses for the New Zealand Building Code, and any conditions and limitations that need to be part of that recognition. We also check that there's no warnings or bans on the product in New Zealand and that the certifier's accreditation hasn't been suspended or revoked in the past. Importantly, we need solid evidence that the product will comply with the New Zealand Building Code when used as intended. Because of this technical process, MBIE may bring in external experts to support robust decision making. If the certificate meets all the criteria set out in the regulations, then we'll begin the process to formally make the notice. Our recognition notices are secondary legislation, and because of this, they incorporate product certificate numbers and standards by reference, which means MBIE must publicly consult to allow the sector and wider public to comment on whether the information is suitable for recognition. Following that consultation, MBIE may finalise the notice. We might amend it to reflect feedback or decide not to proceed. Where the decision is to proceed, the notice is tabled with the Minister for Building and Construction, published by MBIE in the New Zealand Gazette and then on our Building Performance website. Like other secondary legislation, recognition notices can also be amended or revoked if a certificate changes or is no longer valid. So that's quite a bit of information to go through in a bit of a short space of time. So here's a bit of a recap of what we've covered. So following the publication of our Phase 2 watermark recognition notices, MBIE is now progressing both proactive and reactive recognition for further certified products. Our self-assessment and expression of interest tool went live in February, and EOIs are currently being submitted, with the first batch to be looked at very shortly. To manage our recognition process and provide greater certainty, EOIs will be prioritised in batches and may be focused on specific product categories. Prioritisation uses a risk-based multi-criteria assessment. It's also important to note that this is a new initiative and an approach. We've created this process with flexibility and agility in mind, and rest assured if there's any updates or any changes, we'll communicate those quite clearly with the sector. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Liz and Sophie. That was an excellent overview of the 3 new overseas product pathways that are now open. Particularly interesting to hear from you about the feedback that you are seeking through the expression of interest process, which is currently open. So we understand this process is particularly relevant for all those interested in the use of EU building products in New Zealand. So that means manufacturers, suppliers, importers, and that process is free of charge. That's an important one. We will now move to the Q&A session. A quick reminder, please use the Q&A function that is at the top of the screen to submit your questions. You can also like questions or comments to help prioritize them. Liz and Sophie, you've just had a very brief moment to catch your breath. We'll now hand over to you both to lead this Q&A segment. Over to you.
Thanks, Jan. So I think we've got one question here, so I'll just read it out for those interested. If a certification scheme already has been recognised via another product certificate, does that mean that other products with that same certification scheme proceed directly to the product review stage? Good question. I might start and then Liz can tap in if she's got any further comment after that. So it's probably reasonable to assume that previous assessments of certification schemes will be considered when we're looking at evaluating product certificates. Can't say that it would skip a process, but I think if a certification has had a scheme assessment done very recently, that will impact obviously how we move that through the evaluation process as a whole. Any additions there, Liz, on that one?
No, just to say that initial high level review of the scheme itself, that's something that MBIE do in-house, and it's something that we come back to and refresh periodically just to make sure things are changing. And obviously we wouldn't do that right from scratch with every application. So as Sophie alluded to, it wouldn't necessarily mean a right to entry and a skip straight to go, but it sort of does deal with that first part of the process from our end, so it would possibly save a wee bit of time there from us, and it would make it that part of it easier at our end. So thank you. We have another question here. Do we at the moment have any EU certifications granted with direct entry to market status? Sophie, I'm assuming that means through the current recognition notice pathway, so do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. Feel free to post another question if we haven't interpreted it correctly. But at this stage, the only product certificates that we've issued recognition notices for are watermark product certificates. Not all of them, so probably important to not put a blanket over it, but most of them. Our next kind of proactive look at recognition notices is underway at the moment, and that will go through public consultation, as I alluded to before. But at this stage, there's nothing else other than watermark that's recognised. So that's kind of why that EOI is pretty critical for people to submit to us, is so we can get a picture built of who's out there and who wants to kind of use this pathway at the moment.
Nice, thank you, Sophie. We have another question. On the process concerning the three pathways, who begins, a partner in New Zealand or an interested person from the EU? So I can probably speak to that initially. The expression of interest tool is available to anyone. It's geared up for product manufacturers, suppliers and importers, and it's pretty high level at the outset. So you don't have to be New Zealand based to complete one of those. One of the key things we would be looking for, and we would like people to check themselves, is that they actually have met those high level points that we covered in the presentation, that the product that they're interested in getting recognition for is recognised under an overseas product certification scheme, and also that they have a current or near market interest in bringing the product here. So that's pretty important. But yeah, it is open to anyone, and I think we covered off in the slide that there is no fee for submitting an EOI. So it is a link that you can share to organisations back in your jurisdictions.
Cool.
Sophie, did you have anything to add?
No, I think that was well covered. I'm just about to address our next question, which just wants the link for the register of recognition notices at the moment. So if you watch that chat very shortly, I will post that link in there for you. I've also posted the link to the self-assessment and expression of interest tool for those of you that want a direct click to that now before we send the slide pack around. So I think that's all the questions that we've got at the moment. Let me just double check. to make sure.
Hi, Sophie. There's another one from Anne, second from the
Oh,
bottom.
fabulous. There it is. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Thanks, Anne. Any idea on cost of working through a product certification, assuming a new certification scheme? Just wanting to maybe clarify the question here, and there is, at this stage, there's no cost for someone either using our expression of interest tool, or by the time we come to be opening for applications, there is no cost associated with applying for a recognition notice either. I think if you're alluding to the step that happens before that in terms of obtaining a product certification, then yes, there are costs associated with that. And that obviously depends on the type of product and where you're seeking that certification from. But for our recognition process, at the moment, there is currently no cost associated with any of those steps. Hopefully that answers that question.
Thank you, Sophie. I think we've got another one from Anne here. We haven't covered this one. What criteria will be used for the prioritisation process? I.e., will new products not currently available in New Zealand be a focus, or alternatives to existing products that can add to competition? So I can take that question. We're going to use a multi-criteria analysis when we're prioritising. We've got some overarching high-level government objectives that this scheme, in conjunction with the building product specifications and the endorsed standards, seek to achieve. And so we're looking at, in high-level terms, 4 factors. It's the competition is one, the risk to, the quality and the risk factor. So if it's a high-risk product versus something that's fairly low risk in terms of building design and use, a broad feasibility. Is there confirmed interest in bringing it here, and will there be a good need for it here? And then also, does it sort of contribute to meeting the broader objectives? So we've set up a prioritisation framework that we'll be using consistently across all the EOIs. I think we did touch on it in the presentation that we get the expressions of interest coming in as an ad hoc and continual basis, and we'll be reviewing them in tranches and prioritising them. If a product that's come in through the EOI tool doesn't meet the highest priority at any given assessment or evaluation stage, it doesn't mean to say you go back to square one. That will be retained by us, and then within the next round of prioritisations, we'll revisit that. And so, it's sort of not a once and done approach there. The prioritisation criteria haven't been published. We've been developing that through quite recently. But it is something that we'll probably be able to signal at a high level what we're looking for in the not too distant future. So hopefully that answers it. Did you want to add anything to that, Sophie?
No, I think you've covered that well. Thanks, Liz. Just a question here around, has there been any EOIs on aluminium windows from the EU, and more specific from Greece, on windows certified by Passive House Institution? At this stage, because of the information that's provided on those EOIs, there's kind of privacy concerns with sharing the detail of who's submitted an EOI. So that's just information that we store within MB. So unfortunately, we won't be able to kind of highlight any specific people or groups that have submitted any expression of interests. So apologies if that's a reasonably kind of stale answer to your question, but we are conscious of making sure that the people that submit information to us is treated in a way that meets our privacy obligations. So
I think that's quite comforting for the audience to hear as well, though, really. If you've got people on the call that were thinking of they were potentially going to submit, they want to know that their information is looked after and their privacy is guaranteed too. So that's just a sort of a general approach, that we wouldn't release details about those applications.
Yeah, for sure. Right, I think any other questions on there that you can see, Liz?
I don't.
Now's the time.
Yeah, I think we. As far as I can see, I think we've covered it. But Deanne, please, or Bridget, please let us know if there are any in there that we haven't covered off.
We can wait maybe a minute or two, see if anyone's got any other lingering questions for us at all. Basically, for us, one of the really critical things at the moment that we probably want to have you guys communicate to your various audiences and networks is the importance of that expression of interest tool. Someone could probably count how many times we've said that during this webinar, but that tool is a direct kind of line into this pathway. We probably wouldn't open to applications for people that haven't submitted an EOI, so it's a really good first step for us to know who's out there and how we can help with this piece of policy. Great. That little spiels, I think, it's taken up about a minute or so. So we might hand back to you, Diane, for the closeout. Thanks.
Thank you, Liz and Sophie. That was very informative. So definitely an hour well spent. And we know you're also available to address any follow-up questions that colleagues may have. So we are, of course, available to convey these to you. We know you can also be reached at the email that appears on the screen. Lawrence, over to you for a few concluding remarks.
Thank you very much, Diane, and a huge thanks to both of you, Sophie and Liz. I think that was really fantastic and setting out very clearly the opportunities, the three pathways. And I mean, my concluding remarks are just to say what a huge step change this is since I first entered the country 2.5 years ago. I think this is a massive step forward. I also greatly appreciate your openness, your readiness to engage. We do think this is an exciting opportunity. And on the third pathway, the certified overseas, just to underline that, of course, this is stuff that we've been road testing ourselves for 450 million consumers. So this pretty robust process. Of course, each country has its own sovereign approach, but I think that the minister and the ministry are showing a great openness, and it's also a big economy for New Zealand, because why go through elaborate and very expensive testing when it's been done by a very strong, robust single market? It'll also save costs, which are ultimately taxes for New Zealand consumers, taxes that they can more usefully spend on excellent European business building material products. So I think this is a win-win towards warmer, healthier homes. I really appreciate the openness. And what it shows above all is mutual trust, because I see lots of innovation in the New Zealand economy, lots of products that we want to buy in the European Union, a lot of investment opportunities. So the trade is very much two-way, and overall, the free trade agreement we've seen is an extra 3 billion for New Zealand exporters. This is a window that can also benefit EU exporters. So stronger together is very much our message. And I think it shows through your very diligent and clear presentation that there's a real willingness to bring the best from both markets to the citizens and consumers from both markets. And I think that's an exciting opportunity for two societies that are strongly committed to rules-based international trade, which is unfortunately rather under threat globally, but good that the European Union and New Zealand stand up for it and make positive steps in the right direction. So huge thanks to Liz and Sophie. Big thanks to you, Diane, Bridget, Manuel, on the team for pulling this together. I hope you've all found this interesting, all of you online, and don't hesitate to follow up either through that email at overseasproducts@mb.gov.nz or with us at the European Union Delegation. We'll be delighted to hear from you and help you in the best way that we can. So thank you very much, and bonne continuation, as Dan might have said.
Thank you, Lawrence, for these energizing words, and definitely win-win and opportunities would be good words to summarize our discussion. So a quick reminder, so the session was recorded, so we'll make that available for those who could not attend or wish to basically circulate information. The slides will also be circulated. Thank you to Lawrence. Thank you to our great presenters, Liz and Sophie, great to have you. You've made yourself available as part of a very, very busy schedule on your side, so that's much appreciated. And last but not least, many thanks to Bridget McClellan and Manuel Stocco, because this webinar wouldn't have been possible without them and their enthusiasm. So they really deserve a special shout out. With that, we will close. Have a wonderful day. It's a sunny one in Wellington, so enjoy it if you're in Wellington. Enjoy your day in New Zealand. Enjoy your day in Australia.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
All the best. Thanks.